They're still talking. No. Well, this is small.
Okay, let's start. Our next session, building and deploy your master image best practice. We would like to hop into MTS and PBS. My name is Matthias Schlimm, come from Logging Consultants Germany, and the other guys, Eric from Xander Block and Jonathan. We would like to introduce ourselves. So, we'll start with Eric. You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so as for those of you who joined last year, I was supposed to do this session with Matthias. He fell from his roof 2 meters and broke his leg. So we wasn't able to do this session together, and we tried to do a GoToMeeting, but the internet connection was shitty as always, so that didn't work out. So today, he's going to do most of the base image script framework stuff that we missed out last time. So I'm just going to show a quick demo introduction of how we integrate into the automation framework. That's it, I run off and go to the airport. So, my name is Eric, full-time blogger and trainer, and I'm now spending a lot of time going around the world doing my automation masterclass. So, if anybody wants to know more about that, go to the blog. I'm going back to the States in September. I'm going to have a class in Chicago. So it's a 3-day deep dive automation all the way. Toronto and Toronto in October.
Yeah. Okay. As we saw at the first slide with this, from Germany, so I'm working for 4 years for Logging Consultant, and this is today for this week, my first time in the US. So it does not happen last year, so for the accident, but now I'm very happy to stay here for you. As you can see here, planning and design infrastructure for end user computing, basically starting from 500 users to 20,000 at the moment. Concurrent sessions at the moment at my biggest customer, 11,000. So we have a later deep dive into the MCS and PBS deployment was working on and was doing not so good working on. Like scripting and automation, mostly PowerShell, basic script framework as Ron has said before, completely development PowerShell, and we have a deep look into.
Hi, I'm Jonathan from Montreal, Canada. I'm one of the CTA, thanks to Stephanie. For those who are still interested in the secure program, it's going to continue next year. Restrictions are open. Stephanie wrote the blog about it, and I got some cards I can give to you if you want to sign up. And vote will be done in a few weeks, I guess. So so I work as a Citrix admin, architect back in Montreal. I worked for a different enterprise, mostly consultant. I worked in healthcare, also worked in finance. I recently switched from finance back to a Citrix service provider. And I like automation, just like Matthias loved automation. And I'm kind of a freak about Windows update in general. I would rather, install every update possible and then actually see if the issue persists than looking at the maze. That's a lot to do. You can follow me on Twitter. And I recently joined the team with the ISF guys from Logging Consultant like 6 months ago.
Oh, probably that.
And it's been a blast. We're trying to build a lot of new feature in it that you're going to see later. That's it.
Cool. So last day, I seen the session from the Fantastic Four at Synergy. So I'm thinking about this Fantastic Four, and I say, okay, we are not the Fantastic Four, we are. I'm taking one with security, yeah? That's all. The rest of it you can choose. Have a short look about the agenda for the next 2 slides. MTS and PBS backend optimizations, and the rest of it we going deeper into. If you deploy Citrix MTS in the past and you would like to create your first machine catalog, sometimes you fall in everything in the same disaster. You would like to deploy the image is going up with the image preparation machine, and after 80% or someone else, it fails. So the reason is you must exclude the Office realm settings, DHCP settings to working properly with your image. You must do that, mostly you can do that on the site or on the machine, so that catalog level, to completely fulfill the creation of your machine catalog. The next thing is, if the machine preparation failed, you can activate the logging, let's see, on the VDA to see what's going on. And you can have a deeper look that says exactly on which steps the machine preparation fails. The last thing is very important, but mostly the VVM is shutting down and would be removed if the deploys are going on. So you must activate with PowerShell on site level or machine catalog level the last command to prevent the machine is going to shut down, and you have a deeper look in the logging that you have activated before. You can completely see on the block side that's reasonably necessary if you have to run machine creation service to deploy your images. Okay. Next one. The wrong side. One to again. Okay. For Citrix PBS, it's a little bit kind of different. If we have some machines by like 500 or someone else, you can have boot zones if you have booting up your machines on weekend or every day. So for this, PBS Accelerator can help if you have a Xen to run. And the default settings for PBS is set to 160 clients per default. So if you would like to streaming more than this device to PBS and one PBS server fails, you must extend the ports and the threads to, as an example, 50 ports and 10 threads for a maximum of 500 clients per PBS server. So from my point of view, at my last customer, we have at the moment 750 servers from one single image stream without multi-home network. So we are only using one image. Yes.
On the PBS servers can handle 160 devices by default. I asked Jeff Penner-Parsons about that, the guy in charge of PBS, and he says that's total rubbish. It no longer applies, starting with PBS 6, because PBS uses UDP now, and so as soon as a connection is established, that UDP is dropped, and it can, so he says a single PBS server by default, because it now use UDP can handle thousands of connections.
So like, they did get a round number of like 1,000, if you tweak the ports, right?
Yeah, guys, I can actually comment on that if you want. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So the numbers that you hear sometimes are actually, I understand that this applies to physical or virtual, doesn't really matter, but quite often the limit is on virtualized PBS. If you go with physical PBS, it's not unheard of to have, let's say, 2,000 machine streams. Now, obviously, it depends on the stability of the environment. If you have this thing pretty much have to reconcile it between other PBS servers, right? You have to pick up your poison, right? But 2,000 machines is doable, but on physical PBS.
It's possible on virtual, and I've done it multiple times. for
Sure.
multiple customers.
It's a very contentious discussion regarding whether the physical or virtual, but
Jeff Penner-Parsons said this is kind of like the TCP offloading is a configuration setting that's no longer needed, starting with PPS 6 and Server 2008 R2, that none of this really applies to modern versions of PBS, whether they're physical or virtual. And he also calls the recommendation to disable task offloading total rubbish also.
Really? So is he gonna publish that, Webster, or what?
No, that's
He-
what we have Citrix documentation for.
Oh.
Yeah, Jeff Penn-Parsons has said he has been trying to get that published and to also get that stuff, like you can still get, PBS Network best practices. And he said he's either trying to get that article pulled or say that only applies for versions prior to PBS 6.0 or server OSs prior to 2008 R2. If you're running PBS 6 or later, server 2008 R2 or later, that and the TCP offloading does not apply. Matter of fact, both Microsoft and VMware have articles that specifically state from 2008 R2 and later, do not disable any TCP
There's
or
a Microsoft
UDP.
blog post on that. I think I was the second reply to it asking about PBS.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and Jeff actually has a PowerPoint for best practices where I think he was verbal about this content.
Yeah.
So it was not actually PowerPoint,
Yeah.
That's very good input. Only what I would like to say, that's at the default settings at the second line, that's how code is set with each PBS version.
Yeah, but Jeff's point is, the defaults
Yeah.
on any of those settings on the advanced tab of the server for all of those never need, he said probably 0.001% of all PBS installations need to change any of the default settings from PBS 6, 2008 R2 and later. You never need to adjust those settings anymore. Never.
Never, ever, ever?
And never, well, unless you're in that 0.001%. Yeah. So he says all those articles, talking about, changing this and you get this and change this and you get this, he says, total rubbish.
You just gotta update that stuff.
Yeah, he's been trying to get it updated.
Yeah, I don't know what's.
Yeah.
No problem. So we have designed this document at the customer level, also for this environment for mostly 11,000 users, with 6 PBS servers based on hardware machines, in collaboration with Citrix Consulting from Germany, and they have provided this example to set in and run.
But Nick Riddlin, who originally came up with that, says that no longer applies.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, basically, I think the gist of it, I think we can summarize. Citrix needs to update their documentations and best practices, consistent, and also need to be consistent with their own consulting org. I've worked for about 10 years off and on with Citrix Consulting, and I can tell you, I can vouch for what Carl's saying here. I mean, I think we've all agreed it needs to be updated.
If only there was a community organization that could support taking feedback back to Citrix about their documentation.
well, it's yeah. Well, 500 was actually mentioned during the summit when the read cache was mentioned for the Zen server. It was like almost conventional wisdom that 500 is a good limit for PBS. But again, it's not just a matter of updating the documentation. I think people have to reconcile pretty much with experts, like that actually support PBS, right? So, but it's a good number though. 500, right? So before we get the configuration.
Okay. And last, what I say for the PBS installed hardware, if you have the controller settings, PBS is more read intensive, so you must change the controller settings to, it's not an example, that's my opinion, it's recommended 70.5 read% and 25% of write to have a better performance. And the last one is basically on hardware settings to disable the last settings to have optimized performance. Yeah.
I'm going to show them this just as a rest.
The next slide is for the image preparation build. For our point of view, to automate fully the build of your base image, based on human failures, you can install manually or whatever you want. To sealing the processes built automatically is very necessary to defrag your machine, to remove unique identifiers, and so on else. MCS and PBS is very different in the point of sealing. You can have defrag arguments, depends on the operating system type. If you have Windows Client operating system, if you have Windows Server operating system, that's different, the defrag of arguments. And the personalization can also be different. If you're booting up your machines, you have persistent image, you have non-persistent image. Some servers must be started to get a unique identifier from this backend machine or from backend management server. Some other machines doesn't need. Okay, we would like to go into the short demo.
So I was actually introduced to the base image framework from Jonathan like 2-3 years ago. Because he's been using my automation framework, was like, you have to try this framework. And so I started to integrate it, and now this base image framework is a critical part of my automation process build. And I don't care what kind of automation solution you're using, if you're using mine, if you're using SCCM, if you're using REST, whatever. But you have to have an automated building process. And what the base image framework does is everything you need as a part of the manual sealing process. Even you just open the image to patch it, you need to go through the list, and Matthias is going to show that later. So from Citrix, there's a blog post with, I think it's 20 points, but that's just the top of the iceberg. There's so much stuff going in. And I just released a blog post yesterday, and I think the way we do Windows patching of today is that we have to rethink. I think we have to do completely rebuild the mass image each and every week on a schedule. Because there's so much stuff going on. We have the Windows updates, we have the virus patches, everything. So people, you need to automate this. So basically with PowerShell, you can do everything, and this is what we're going to show here. We're using PowerShell. So what I'm doing here manually, of course this as well, this is just an old version. So I'll go in and switch from standard mode to private mode, and I drag it out to my master image collection. Yeah, you can drag and drop. It's slow. And then we basically go and run a PowerShell script. Here it's schedule. You can use it through Windows Scheduler, or you can use Afterglow, which gives you a lot more functions. But basically using fixed MAC address. That MAC address get out to the NIC. That MAC address is associated with a task sequence inside the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. And by this, it will pick the correct task sequence and start the build. There's also a part of the script, as you saw here, we are building on the MDT boot ISO. And after a minute, it will automatically switch to the PDM or PBS. So after that, it will now boot directly to PBS. It will find the MAC address in the database, and will automatically attach that vDisk when the provisioning server-type device software gets installed. So it's available instantly. So what basically the script framework does as part of the building process is optimizing .NET, virus scanning, and all that. And at the end, especially for PBS, it would actually copy that C disk over to the vDisk. So it will automatically dump that image into my vDisk, and I will done. So they're going to show this later. But as you see here is all the steps going through. And at the end, it will now dump it. So this build process takes about 1 hour, depending on what we're putting in. Using Turbo, it could take more time, because we are downloading 2-3 gigs from internet, but it's a lot of options. So there you see it's now dumping. It's finished. It shuts down. And it will now delete the VM. Why do we delete the VM? Because we cannot have 2 VMs at the same time. So that's basically how it works. So, then we take a rest. I'm off. See you all next time.
So, why we should use the IC? So, a few years ago, I started dealing a lot with So about 5 years ago, I was working at a large bank in Quebec, and we were dealing with a lot of different vintages. And every time I had to, manually do a bunch of steps that I found in different articles on the script implementation, on the antivirus we're using, how they, run CC cleaner, all that sort of things. And I came up with my own script, which was, about I think 2,000 lines or so. And then after doing some research, I found out Matthias was doing his own thing, which was way better than mine. So what I did is I tried to combine what I had that he was missing with what he built with the rest of the logging consultancy. And he was so annoyed by my request at some point that he asked me to join the team. So I'm gonna just iterate a few steps that you, I think, should do when you clone an image, because keep in mind that PDS or MCS, it's just like cloning sort of like Ghost or Acronis. You might have some problem with unique ID, especially when you're dealing with VHD or VHD file. They can get pretty big, so it's important to keep them as low as possible in terms of size. So I won't list them all because that would be boring. I'll give you a reason why. So for instance, the reset MS distribution transaction service, that's an issue that will occur when you clone a PDS image. I've seen it many times. Citrix did document it at some point in one of their blog posts, but it's pretty hard to find. The message queuing, clear cache, and QMID, that's the unique identifier for your machine. And when you use session recording, you need that working, else session recording won't work at all. And actually, session recording will be included in 7.14, so for those people who were not using it before, well, it's going to be there by default now. The delete local profile, if you somehow tested your dead image with a production user and the profile did not get deleted off your base image, well, once you go to production, those copy of those profiles will still be there. So you might end up with 10 profile, or you have profile, an old copy of your profile and a new one with that domain name. And, you don't want to deal with that. So the profile manager cache, well, in version 5, that's no longer there, but if you're still still using version 4X, you have to leave that cache, it's recommended. What else? The grace period fix for RDS, that's the so-called time bomb key. When you run out of grace period, it's a fix we put in there automatically in the script. The AppV cache, you don't want any previous cache in there to keep things clean. And the last one, I don't really know about this yet. That's an issue you have?
That's issue?
Yeah.
Yes. If you deploy your image and have the KMS server activated, as you know, the customer, and you're starting Office 2010, 2013, or 2016, the Office the user became an Office activation machine. And that would be fixed in this discussion block on the from I think 10 days ago, and happens I think with the VDA 7.9 or 7.10. And if you're using this registry settings, the issue is gone.
Is this fixed in your version by default? Still
No, that it's currently not fixed at the moment. We have only seen them in the last 10 days. And we must fix them in the next one.
So yeah, stopping DHCP client service. I've seen an issue where even if you're running DHCP or you are running DHCP, you're running Citrix, PDS, or MCS, the IP registry information will be kept, and you end up with duplicated IP, and then you need to mount your DHDX, mount the registry IP, and then delete it manually. So that's quite a long process. With this script, you don't have to worry about it. The antivirus is a very interesting one. Every antivirus, especially the agent one, are different. Most of them we will provide an update to the definition file, because if you don't do anything, you're gonna probably keep an older definition file update. So we'll first do the update, then we'll ask you, do you want to scan the whole disk? If you want to avoid read IOPS, it could be a good thing. And also we'll remove the unique ID and stop the services. So they're all different, but pretty much you need to do all the same steps for agent-based antivirus. SCCM, that one is a known issue. You clone it, you have an ID file you need to delete and a certificate as well. You want to take care of that. SCUM, I haven't used SCUM, but there's a script there for that. Absence, Res, third-party tools as well. Even Res tested the last version of BISF and stamped it. So thanks for Res.
Also version 9 and 10 would be qualified by Res.
Cool. So thanks to Res for doing that. It's pretty cool. Rearming Office. It's, you know, I've seen I had an admin at work. I won't mention his name. It took him, I think, a week just to get visual working because of the rearm stuff. So if he had used BISF, he would probably have it working in a few minutes. So yeah, it will do the rearm just once. You can configure this. Well, Matthias will show you how after. Defrag. It's interesting. Citrix wrote a blog about PVS, VHD file, and defrag, I think 2 years ago, saying you could increase performance if you were defragging your disk. So that's why we put it in there. The edge side cache, well, you know, most likely your template machine has previous historical data that you no longer need. So it's a good thing to delete it if you're still using edge side. The WEM recently got out. There's some stuff you need to do for WEM. We had connect different information from the team. Some say it's best to resurrect the WEM cache on the D drive. Apparently it works if it's stick on the C drive, so we might have to change that. Obviously, XAMPP prep on 6.5 is something you need to run. Most admin I know don't do anything. They just clone it and then later they have issues. We also do optimization for the scheduled task. We do remove the recommended ones. For services, we're still investigating what we need to do because we put it in a beta version and I ran into issue in my environment. So we took it out for now. We will probably come back to the future version once the Citrix Customizer tool is out. And finally, if you don't have your right cache disk already formatted, the tool will do it automatically for you.
So how do you format, again, the right cache disk?
If you're putting up a new cloned machine with a new real disk is attached, we scan this disk, format the disk with the script framework, run a GP update once, and reboot the machine at once. So the machine comes putting up, and we have also included that the drive level is consistent. If you would like to choose the D drive, the E drive, or something else, that do not fall
So
back.
basically put the letter, and do you also put the tag on the partition that it will not say new hardware was found? Yes, you can. Now, one potential suggestion is, let's say if somebody needs to resize the write cache, which usually will require the change of the size of the partition and maybe formatting, you can have an image not joined to the domain that will have a very simple script with disk partition reference. So what you do, you switch to that disk, not with your base image, right, but we call it the flasher image. So you boot the machine with a disk, it boots up, kills pretty much the entire, basically destroys the right cache disk, puts the right partitioning, puts the right block size, puts the right tag for the partition, right? And also, let's say if you redirect the log files or whatever else you redirect, let's say antivirus, creates the folders. So, and then what this thing does, shuts down, then you'll automatically mount pretty much another VHD behind the PVS, and here you go. So in this case, it's kind of independent from abilities of, let's say, hypervisors. It doesn't really matter what hypervisor is. And it's kind of easy way of keeping things clean, you know. So
we also run, in the next slide you see, we also run sdelete on the streamed image, but only if the image is in shared mode. Sdelete is only running on the...
Sdelete will run once you boot your PVS machine. Sdelete will run once on the right cache partition to zero out the sectors. Actually, I had a fun issue with SDLE. Marcus Zinovich released SDLE 2.0, I think, last summer. And, it was, I think, what he did is he converted it to 64-bit compatible, which was great. So I started running it in production, and I soon realized that my write cache was getting filled, and no user could get in. Actually, it didn't happen on all server, but it was happening, kind of randomly. So I found out in the system kernels forum that other have reported the issue. So now what we do with the script, we detect if you're running SDLE 2.0, we will exit the script and give you a warning. So it's a good idea to revert back to 1.6.1, which is the working one.
Do you notice alignment issues anymore?
Sorry?
Alignment, disk alignment, in the past. there was-
16K.
Yeah.
We don't do anything for alignment in particular, but
Yeah.
I think, since 2008 or 2, there was a fixed issue.
Well, yeah, so when it depends what you format with, right? So depends what version of NTFS.
Well, it probably depends
Yes.
on what kind of
Yeah.
storage you're running. Also. Yeah. Okay, how to handle ceiling and personalization. So yeah, you guys remember movie Sixth Sense? So when I get to an environment and nothing, they just clone the image, and I go kind of nuts, and I show them the tool. So okay, this tool is 100% PowerShell. There's just bash script in there to launch it, but that's about it. The bash script will launch the PowerShell script in behind.
It's only the start.
Yeah, exactly. So we do support pretty much all platform at this point, RDS8, VDI, then Azure Desktop, MCF PBS, VMware View. You could potentially even run it if you just clone a Windows image for endpoint device. Because the way it works, we detect if the software is installed according to the registry key or the service name, and then we do the necessary step. If the software is not detected, we don't do anything. You have two cases to use BISF. The first one would be in a task sequence, like MDT with Eric's commission framework, that's a good example. Or you could run it part of your SCCM build or any other ESD really. Because it's PowerShell, it will be compatible with pretty much anything. You could also run it sort of manually when you do your monthly golden image update. So you do your Windows update, your software update, you test it, you reboot, and then at the very end, the very last step you want to do is run the ISF. And when the ISF complete, it will shut down the machine automatically, so you know you're done. So it will remove, we've already mentioned, it will remove unique ID from pretty much all the antivirus we could put our hands on so far, and other monitoring software for sure. So yeah, it works for persistent and non-persistent image. That's not a problem. We do detect if PBS is running in private or maintenance mode. We will also automatically detect, like I mentioned, the software install according to the service name or registry key. We format the write cache disk only once. We do the conversion automatically if you're starting a new disk. And you can even, potentially put your own script in there. When you go to the program file, the ISF folder, there's a folder called custom. If you need any custom script to run, you just put your PowerShell script in there. We have an existing template that you can, modify, or you can copy an existing one and, just modify it and put it in the custom folder. And the custom scripts are kept after you do an update of the ISF. Okay, so what is BISF? BISF is not designed to install any sort of software. It's not meant for that. And like I mentioned, you will execute it at the end. So really the idea is to avoid cloning issues, get a better performance, reduce the footprint of the VHDX file, and happy days, you don't have to worry about those issues that you were dealing with manually before.
So the installation for our script framework is quite simple. We have created a simple installer in the current version. That's normal Windows setup installer. It's very simple. You can click, next, install and finish. And that's completely installed in the C program files x68 folder. If some of our customers has running a previous version, that must be removed manually. So the previous version is only in a simple copy job that you have executed from the previous zip folder. And it's necessary to copy all the third-party tools like sdelete, VE tool that comes from Symantec, or CC Cleaner if you like to want to use installed in your base image. Base image does not deliver this third-party tools. It only can be used if you were like in the script framework. In the installer folder is a complete administration guide available. It's a PDF that describes all the environment, all the configuration that's been needed at your base image. The configuration is quite simple. We have also an ADMX file available. That's the ADMX file that's necessary for the silent configuration. With the next version of the script framework, if the ADMX is not configured, the executing of the script framework will not be run. And you have completely configured your script framework with the ADMX in different sections. You can see here on the global section, run defrag at the end, but defrag is only run on FWD8 or FWD5 on the base image, not on the parent disk. Or you're using MSAS, it's running on the base disk as well. So I'm going short into the next steps. We have a short into for the third-party tools that can be used. Then the next one is for the Citrix environment. You can choose your drive letter for the Citrix write cache disk from the D drive to set at the end. And that is the D drive or the write cache disk itself that will be configured if you're booting up your device. That's formatted once, rebooting the machine, and the machine is up and ready. Next point, the global section. We have several functions that can become completely configured to execute the script framework and completely run without any user interaction. Shut down base image after sealing. We have a look into a P2PVS log file, and if the result is null and works as well, the shutdown base image would be shut down. So Microsoft Recache can be removed. Also, the Office rearm and the operating system rearm run once at your base image to fulfill the rearming state on your clone image. So several other functions that would be supported now at the moment: RES, FSLogix, Symantec antivirus for several antivirus solutions like Trend Micro, Symantec, Kaspersky, I don't know, I think it's 5 or so at the moment that we can support it. Last but not least, Noel.
Do you use Novel still? Anyone?
I do not hear you alright at the customer, sometimes it can be wrong. To execute the image, it's very simple. We have on prepare base image a normal CMD that's started the framework itself. You see all here the ADMX that can be copied to the central store folder and can be used for configuration.
And once you run it for the first time, it will create a shortcut on your admin desktop, so the next time you don't have to run the script.
So, and if the script is executed in the new version, the 6.02 at the moment, you can see the several steps. We get the conversion from the VDA, from the PVS and someone else. Here, Heat DSM for the Heat DSM client itself, the rehome status for Windows Server 2016 or for Office if installed on your image, and someone else that's being on the base image. After that, we convert the base image to the attached vdisk, and if the converting state is successful, we shut down the base image at the end.
All right, so do my thinking measure right quick. So this is what the ISF do. We cover a lot, and a lot more is coming. I won't list them all because we're short on time, but you get an extended list of what we're doing. And Tim mentioned this morning the .NET optimization, the NQ. That's an issue that I've seen often forget about it, put in production. It takes 100% of, 50% of what used to do.
Are you doing ready boot optimization?
I don't think we do that yet. If you have any documentation about it, please just send it and we'll make sure to include it in the next one.
So what was that last one I couldn't hear?
I'm sorry?
What was the last question? He asked if
He asked if we were doing ready boot optimization yet. And the answer is no, not at this moment, but we'll look into it.
This would be a great addition to Citrix Smart Tools. Where you can just drop this down as a payload, just execute it.
Yeah, well, we have some news about that at the end. We'll mention it, but yeah, we thought about it. So SRS some currently support. We just had a request this morning to add Windows Defender. Apparently there's some stuff required for Defender. I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, those are agent-based as far as, of course. If you have agent-less, you don't need to do anything except, computer session. For ESD, we support all of that too. If you have any other software within your enterprise that you're doing some stuff manually or you run into a calling issue, please send us information about that so we can add them, because obviously we cannot test everything. We support all the major application virtualization related to Citrix environment. So we got some of those stuff you need to enable in the ADMX template because it depends however you want to use your environment. Like for instance, I don't do antivirus scanning of my image every single time because it takes a very, very long time. I will do it maybe once every 3 months or so. Yeah, we did integrate the VMware OS optimization tool in the last one. Right now, you need to install the tool manually because we cannot, deliver it for free. But advice of caution when you're using that, test your settings, make sure they work. Just don't apply the VMware template automatically and put it in production. You will end up with issues.
Okay, to save time, one slide again. Shortly, the team of our reserve, mostly from logging consultants, and many thanks to Jonathan that helped the team 6 months. Well, thank you. And if you have any questions, send us an email or via Twitter. So at the moment we have round about, I think, 2,500 downloads in the last 2 years from this tool at the start to today. A short history about the agenda and the history of the download itself. And at the end, plans for today, what we were looking in the future, what we would like to integrate. And we have a special discussion with Martin Zugic from Citrix about the Citrix Optimizer tool. So we would get the beta next version. I will test it with the script framework, and he gave us the support for the script framework. That's very great. Yeah. And if you would like to get a copy from this tool, no problem. At the end, you can see now here some of our customers at the moment. And if you have any questions at a later time, or you get for free a free copy of this tool. That's
Smart tools.
Yeah,
You were telling us about your smart tool. future plans.
It should be, yeah,
That
you have the
was,
Citrix
Well,
optimizer.
it's part of the Citrix Optimizer plan. So
Oh, okay,
we
okay.
sat down with Martin, and basically, once we get the tool to test, we will integrate it at the script. So
Okay.
the script will run automatically. I'm not sure if you should the smart tools plan because we're not allowed to, but you know about it. So yeah, maybe at the later time it will be integrated to smart tools. We haven't really discussed that to begin with, but Martin was really, really impressed with the tool so far. And he even said that potentially when they blog about it, they will talk about the ISF, saying it's already supported, you can use the ISF to run the tool during the study process.
Thank you very much. Wish you all.